His first season with Manchester United could not have gone much better. Dwight Yorke, after arriving from Aston Villa, won the Premier League, FA Cup and Champions League in his debut campaign. Not only that, but the frontman finished as the league's top goalscorer and won the Premier League Player of the Season. Yorke had also contributed in Europe, scoring important goals against Bayern Munich, Barcelona, Inter Milan and Juventus. He had formed a superb partnership with Andy Cole, and the United strike force was one of the most feared in world football. They complemented each other perfectly. Given how well he began his career at Old Trafford, very few people were surprised with how well the striker performed in the following campaign under Sir Alex Ferguson. The frontman was a regular member of United's 1999-200s title-winning side, contributing 23 goals in all competitions. The striker was a popular member of the Reds' dressing room, and he was, by all accounts, liked by Ferguson. However, the pair didn't always see eye to eye during Yorke's time at Old Trafford, and the player experienced the hairdryer treatment on more than one occasion. It wasn't always justified, but given that Yorke fell asleep in the middle of the pitch at Sydney's Olympic Stadium during a training session, Ferguson can be forgiven for losing his temper with his star forward. The Reds travelled to Australia as champions of Europe and England after completing the treble during their all-conquering 1998–99 campaign. While Yorke had played an important role in United reclaiming their crown, he still wasn't protected from Ferguson's wrath. During the preseason trip, Yorke, and several of his United teammates, enjoyed a spontaneous night out in Sydney. It was a heavy one, and many of the club's first-team stars were struggling. Unlike his teammates, though, Yorke couldn't hide how he felt the next morning. This, unsurprisingly, led to the funniest thing Nicky Butt had ever seen in football. Ferguson, on the other hand, did not see the funny side. The Scotsman was not present on the trip, with the United boss missing the Australian leg of United's tour that summer as he was receiving his knighthood. As a result, Steve McLaren was left in charge. Much like when school children run riot when they have a substitute teacher, the Reds players made the most of Ferguson's absence. Curfews were set, but curfews were not followed. The players were enjoying their freedom, so it came as no surprise that they didn't make it back to the hotel until 4 or 5 in the morning. A particularly heavy night saw Yorke fall asleep during training the following day, and in typical fashion, his teammates were in no rush to give him a nudge. "We were stretching on the pitch, then I heard someone snoring," Butt recalled in an interview with 442 in 2011. It was Yorkie. Had fallen asleep. We were all giggling, but no one woke him up. He was fast asleep, but he was still sat up. After 4 or 5 minutes of stretching we got up to jog, leaving Yorkie asleep in the middle of the field. Cole, meanwhile, recounted how he tried to help his comatose strike partner, adding, "I was shouting, 'Yorkie! Yorkie! Yorkie!' He made a bit of a noise as if he'd heard us, but he was comatose." Steve was in charge, and while we respected him, we took absolute liberties. We just weren't scared of him like we were with the manager. He gave us curfews but we just ignored them. Had only been at the club for 6 months and hadn't built up the authority to discipline us. Unsurprisingly, word got back to Ferguson quite quickly. When United's squad moved on to Hong Kong for the next leg of their tour, the stern Scotsman was keen to deal with the matter in his own unique way. "Yorkie snoozing in the middle of the Olympic Stadium remains the funniest thing I've ever seen in football," said Butt. The story got back to the manager, who came out to meet us a few days later in Hong Kong. He went nuts. York gave his own recollection of the incident, admitting that he sat down to stretch after starting to feel dizzy and inadvertently dropped off into the land of Nod. "I am lucky that I don't get hangovers," he said. "But after 20 minutes my head was starting to spin. I was relieved when we started to do some stretches and thought I'd take the opportunity of lying down for a minute to stretch. Big mistake. Within 2 seconds I was fast asleep. The next thing I knew I was being drenched with water and I woke to find the lads killing themselves with laughter." Having played a starring role in United's treble-winning campaign, York was, understandably, keen to celebrate. His exploits in Australia infuriated Ferguson, but when the prolific frontman sensationally asked the Scot for a year away from football in order to celebrate the treble and recharge, the Reds manager couldn't believe what he was hearing. During an appearance on the UTD podcast, York was asked about the story where he went into Sir Alec's office to gain his permission to take a 12-month sabbatical. When asked if it was true, he replied, "Yeah, but with pay. I mean, what else is there to do in football after winning the treble? I was on such a high. It was ridiculous. Concorde was flying back then and I remember we went to New York. Back in the days they used to put you up with the pilot. I got to New York and I thought, what else is there to achieve after this? Because everything else will be a failure or deemed as a failure. I went into the gaffer's office and said, what are we doing? After winning the treble there's nothing to do. Can I have a year off from football with pay? And then I'll come back the next year, rejoin the team. I honestly don't know what made me think that. What more could we possibly do as a team? Yeah, we could repeat it, but if you don't then the team is a failure. If there was a time you were going to ask the gaffer for anything, that was it. I didn't have anything to lose. He could only tell me to F*** off, which he did. He said, F*** off and get lost. It was jokingly, but if he had said to take a year off then I would have done. But I knew that wasn't going to happen, so I thought it was worth a try. Thankfully, for both Ferguson and United, York opted against taking a sabbatical. While his third season was less successful on a personal level, the striker still grabbed his 100th Premier League goal in a 3-0 victory over Derby County in November 2000. The frontman also bagged a hat-trick in a top-of-the-table clash with Arsenal as United went on to win a third successive title. However, it became clear that his time at Old Trafford was coming to an end, and even when a move to Middlesbrough fell through, it was only a matter of time before he moved on from United. He was not handed a squad number for the 2002-03 campaign. In July 2002, York moved to Blackburn Rovers for an initial £2 million. The Reds wanted a fee of £6 million, but that was unrealistic and the figure was always too high. The striker signed for Rovers and was reunited with his former United strike partner Cole. For many people, York's United career ended too early. The frontman played 152 times for the Reds, registering 66 goals and 31 assists. Despite this, he still played a crucial role in a significant part of the club's history and enjoyed consistent success as part of Ferguson's rampant side. Given the part he played in that famous team, it's surprising that York found the time for a nap in Australia, but asking the boss for 12 months off is perhaps even more surprising.